Is there going to be? Oh, there's no audio coming out of there. Maybe a little bit.
My computer should be muted currently. You should not hear my computer.
And we're live on Facebook now too. Cool. All right, we already got people jumping in. There's Dustin and Ryan Finch, who's right here, is also on the webinar. Hey, Dustin. Dustin, feel free to hop in the chat box and say hey, and we'll drop links and communicate with you in the chat box, and then the Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your screen is for asking questions. We'll get started here in a few minutes once more people join, and then we're gonna have an audience on Facebook Live as well. If you want to ask questions, though, you got to be registered for the webinar. Let me quit some of my other applications on my computer here. Dustin, you know Ryan. This is Ryan. I'm Andrew. We are in my basement today because the internet at our office is on the fritz. It's always great for a technology company to have the internet go down. Gotta love it. It says you guys have emailed back and forth before.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's everyone now at this point.
Emailed everyone. All right, folks, if you're joining in on Facebook Live, this is a new users webinar. This is designed to just share information about best kind of practices and use of the Apex Pro product, give you kind of an idea of the features and benefits of the product if you're not using it already, and then obviously directly answer anyone's questions who's actively using the product or interested in using it. We're going to screen share the Apex Pro app. So you'll see my iPad screen get shared onto the computer. So we'll be looking at some new things in the app. Ryan is going to walk us through how to mount the Apex Pro device in your car. Might even be able to talk him into sitting in my car while he does it. We'll see. And just in general, we're going to answer your questions and kind of talk about resources and how to get the most out of the device. So if you are watching, let us know. Maybe what you drive, and if you're using an Apex Pro device or not. Dustin, I'm pretty sure is. We've only got, we should have some more folks joining the webinar here. We try to do these kind of in the lunch hour. And then usually our paid webinars we do in the evenings. So it's a little more convenient. Dustin's running the Gen 2, very cool. Got a Gen 2 on the hood of the car back here. And then we also have some Valvoline 20W50. Because Valvoline is a partner of the show. So appreciate it, Valvoline. And I'm running Valvoline in the Disco because they love thick weight oil with zinc in it.
That's right.
So yeah. All right, we'll just hang tight and let some more folks join. Only got one participant so far. And you and Ryan. Got a handful of folks on the live feed on Facebook. Facebook folks, if we don't have a ton of questions on the Zoom webinar, feel free to drop your questions in the comments and we will try to answer those as well. This session is also being recorded. So this video will be posted to YouTube and emailed out to the new users webinar participants, the folks who have registered there. Let's share the live stream to places.
Okay.
I want to drop it in the users group. I was thinking about sharing it to maybe a beginner data.
Everyone sees me looking down because I'm working on my iPad over here. What groups that go to?
Beginner data.
Okay.
If you can share it to the Apex Pro groups. We can start this off by saying yesterday was Veterans Day, and we've got our very own veteran sitting here. Marine.
Marine from 04 to 08. Well, technically, we're once a Marine, always Marine, but you know.
Get that timeline in there. Share this over to the NASA HPDE group as well. All right, we got some more folks on the webinar now. We got Kim Coffey on here. Got Craig Russell. We got Marios Khan. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat box. Dustin is Army.
Nice.
Craig's from New Zealand. Awesome, Craig. Yeah, I saw that we were shipping an Apex Pro to New Zealand. Very cool. We can actually add tracks easily now too. I know we have a lot of tracks in New Zealand already because we've had customers there before, but let us know if you need those added. Hey, Kim, hope you can make it down to Barber with us in January to do a little driving with the NASA contingent. Patrick Thompson just joined in. All right, folks that are joining the webinar, go ahead and jump into the chat box. Let us know maybe what you drive, where you're driving. Are you using an Apex Pro already? That's valuable information. If everybody's like, no, I'm considering one, versus, hey, I've already bought one, I need to know more about the product. That's important information. Just so you guys know, our internet is out at the office, so our backdrop is my car instead of the office, but it works.
It works.
My internet works a lot better than it does at the office right now. You monitoring Facebook for questions?
Yep. Right now, people just saying hi.
Cool.
Got some left coast, as Mark McGee says. Stanford just said hi from North Carolina.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Stanford.
Dr.
He is
Rex.
on the left coast. He's all the way out there on the left side. I like that saying the left coast because it's like the country left to right coast, left coast. Good stuff. I don't know where we are coastal. We're on the south coast, I guess, kind of.
Yeah, say we're not. Well,
South coast, kind of in the middle.
to
Patrick
the
drives a
right,
Boxster
south.
S. Awesome. Cool. Kim's going to Memphis to drive the Supra with Mid-South.
Ooh.
Craig heard about us on the Data Driven podcast. That's with Samir. That's great info. Thanks for sharing that, Craig. I need to reach out to Samir and see how he's doing. Patrick's got the app and just the OBD2 unit so far. Cool. Well, we will jump in, and we've done a couple of these this year. So we've already talked. Some of you might have seen some of this content before. Also, if you just bought an Apex Pro Gen 2, there's a little card that comes in the box, which we have right here. That looks like this. And that says, scan the QR code using the camera on your phone to access the Apex Pro Startup Guide, and then it gives you a link. So if you just bought a Gen 2, make sure to scan that or type that URL that you see right there into your internet browser and sign up for the Apex Pro Startup Guide, because what we're going to go over today is pretty much verbatim from that online startup guide. And that online startup guide is basically videos of me walking through, step by step in the app, how to use every feature, touch on a little bit of everything. Miss somebody up here. Okay, Dustin was just saying he's from Kansas City. No coast for me, right in the middle. Camaro Z01 using the Apex Pro Gen 2, NASA Central and Great Lakes HPDE 4.
Got Pat from Florida checking in.
Awesome. Hey, Pat. Guys that are on the webinar too, you'll see the Q&A box in the bottom of your Zoom kind of page. If you click that and enter like a question that you want to make sure we answer, that will make sure that Ryan and I answer it on air. If you type that in the chat box, we might miss it. The Q&A box pops up and it's like, oh, we got a Georgia fan. Patrick says go Dogs. I used to have my Auburn stuff. I'm an Auburn grad, Patrick. So you guys totally took us to the house already this year. So I won't get into football. It's not looking good.
Still the northern fan.
Yeah, Michigan fan over here. Cool. So
one quick thing, I already put it in the chat, but just to let everyone know, near the 2 there, if you have host and panelist, it's only going to go to Andrew. If you change it to everyone can interact and talk that way in the chat box.
Yeah.
because I see most are going directly to you right now.
Right. Yeah. So in the chat box, if you want everybody to see your comments, make sure it says to everyone, and ask your questions for us in the Q&A. And that will, if you have like a specific question, if you're just chatting saying like, hey, blah, 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 all this stuff. Yeah, Robbie went to Auburn as well. Need to get on to him about if he's graduated yet or not. I don't know. Turns out when you get paid by BMW to race cars, graduating is less important, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't blame him. So let's cover a couple like high level things, and then we're going to jump in and we're going to walk through the curriculum and the Apex Pro Startup Guide and share our screen over and look at the app. For those of you maybe like Patrick, who's got an OBD2 unit and you're just using the app, I think it's really important to know that the Apex Pro app is totally free to download on the iOS App Store. Our Android app is currently not supported. There is one on the store. It actually has pretty good ratings somehow, but it's not supported. We're fully focused on iOS at the moment, and the app can be downloaded completely for free, and you can use your phone's GPS and the OBD2 unit to log lap times, get some vehicle data. You're not going to have comprehensive data review like you've seen in our videos, and you're not going to have good GPS position because you're using your phone, but you can download the app for free and use that. And you can also purchase Lap Timer Plus features like video and predictive and use that with your phone as well, which is really cool. We'll talk about that again. So if you have friends who are looking, first track day, first autocross, looking for a timing solution, download the free app. Apex Pro is actually the only one that gives you, most of the other apps, like some of the other competition that's in that space. There's a lot of limitations when you download the app. They might only allow you to do like 1 or 2 sessions before you have to pay. The Apex Pro app is totally free to use your phone GPS. Obviously, it's a lot more valuable when you have the device.
Tested the free app last weekend at Road Atlanta.
Oh yeah,
the race truck.
Right. Ryan was at Road Atlanta for SCCA time trials.
Yep.
And did some parade laps in
Right.
his Chevy 1500.
Yep. So
But-
quickly jumped in to do the parade laps. So didn't have a Gen 2 mounted or anything, but
Yeah.
since I had the app on me and a phone mount, I quickly set it up and got 5 laps around there.
Yeah. And I've done that before too. I was at Mid-Ohio earlier this year, and I got the chance to jump in a buddy's Honda Fit, and it was like session was already hot, go. He had pulled his Apex Pro out to use in his other car, Matt Williams.
Wow.
He's got 2 race cars. Smart guy. So I jumped in and I just strapped my phone into his phone mount and ran the Apex Pro app by itself. So if you don't connect to the hardware, there's a toggle in the user profile. You can shut off the hardware connection. Actually, if you don't ever connect it to hardware, it defaults to operate that way. So Patrick, you can operate that way. He's going to Petite for the race.
Very
Jelly,
cool.
Super jelly. My parents are there hanging out with Robbie. They're like, we're gonna go see Robbie race. I'm like, okay. Let's pull up the startup guide real quick. So I'm going to share my screen over to show you guys what that Apex Pro startup guide looks like. Just real quick. So this is the QR code that comes in the box with the Gen 2. You can just search drivermod.thinkific.com. That'll get you there as well. And then you select the Apex Pro Startup Guide. And this is just going to kind of welcome you to everything that Apex Pro is about. And then chapter 2 is downloading the app. So what do you need to know about the app? We already talked about iOS only. It's going to be compatible with devices on iOS 13 through 15. If your device is on iOS 13, that's the Apple operating system, you want to update it to iOS 15. There's no reason to stay on an old operating system with Apple. If you're that type of person who gets sucked into, I really like the UI and everything about this old operating system, trust me, Apple's not taking advantage of you by giving you updates. What they're primarily do it for is security. So they try to keep people from hacking. And the longer an OS exists out there, the more hackers there are. So it's always better. And we also always keep our app kind of tuned and optimized for the latest iOS, because you have to declare, like declaring a major as an Apple app developer, you have to declare that you support one iOS version over the other. And right now we're supporting iOS 15. So it's always the latest one. So you're not going to get as optimal app performance on iOS 14. Is there anything else we need to know about app compatibility?
No, just saying that the iOS 15 was a big update. A lot of things did change. So it's definitely very important to be on 15 because we had to make a lot of changes on our end to make things still work correctly. There
That's
were
right.
a lot of things that changed. So
Yeah, if you see anything in the app, like if the bar across the top of the screen is white, you'll notice like Gmail was that way. There were some UI problems in just like every app that you used. Make sure you're on the latest version of iOS 15, and that'll fix that.
should be 15.1 today.
15.1. All right, and Apex Pro is 8.35 app version.
Right.
Mounting the Apex Pro hardware. Tell us about it, Ryan. And we will stop the screen share for this so you can give us the full quick and dirty on how to mount your Apex Pro unit.
So I'm going to be using a suction mount for this to make it a little easier. But ultimately, when you are mounting your Apex Pro, you want it to be directly facing you. Now I'm showing the camera directly facing you.
Yeah, so the windshield's this way.
Correct. So in the car, you wouldn't be able to see. It's not a very good representation because you're not going to see it very well. But so this would be facing you in the car. Now you want it to be going with the front of your vehicle, directly front, not yawed towards the driver in any way, because you want to have the accelerometers and everything going with the correct direction of the vehicle. If you have it skewed to the side, it will definitely throw off your data on your friction circle. You also needed to have in a position where it has a good view of the sky. I know some people like to do it really high, potentially by the rearview mirror, which as long as you have a good view and good connection, that's great. But some vehicles, that becomes difficult and maybe it'll mess up your connection with a good GPS there.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough.
So there's a GPS antenna in the Apex Pro hardware, and it needs to be able to basically draw a straight line up from the hardware out the windshield for an ideal connection. Right, with satellites.
Otherwise, if you're just doing a 3M tape to your dash, mine's on my Civic is all the way to the bottom left of the dash. It has a great view of the sky, and also I can see it in peripheral vision.
Yeah, let's talk about the difference between mounting your base plate up there. Let's talk about the difference between the base plate. So this is the magnetic piece that is provided when you purchase an Apex Gen 2. It's magnetic. It now has offset pins to retain the device on it, and you can peel that adhesive and stick it on your dash where it has a clear view of the sky. And that's 9 times out of 10, if you're primarily driving that car on track, that's what you're going to want to do. But you might want to suction mount too. Why would somebody need another mounting option?
So I prefer the suction mount because given my time at either autocross or track days, co-driving other people's vehicles, sometimes coaching as yourself, it's easier to jump with a suction cup mount from one vehicle to the next. So that way you don't have to worry about trying to find a good hard mounting location. When you are using the 3M tape and hard mounting it, you of course want to have a very clean surface to put it on, so you don't have to clean it up with alcohol real quick on the spot, and you don't have to worry about letting it have a good adhesion before going out to the track, because last thing you want is not a good stick before you go out there. I know I've seen a dirty dash before, send one off, so we don't want that.
Yeah, that can happen. So if you're an instructor or you're being instructed, a lot of times instructors will want to take their Apex Pro and put it in their student's car when they ride or drive their student's car, and vice versa. Maybe you want to ride with your instructor and get their data. You can buy the suction mount. They're $40. You can mount your unit to that, and then you can easily move it between cars. Just remember the same mounting principles apply. And that is chapter 3 on the startup guide, everything that we covered.
Which these are really actually easy to mount in from weird positions from your windshield, that this can pivot in many different ways with this ball design. So just make sure it's, once again, upright, going with the flow of traffic, and good view of the sky.
Awesome. Craig's been asking some questions in the Q&A box, and then I saw Dustin has one there too. Some of these, Craig, we will definitely get to all of them. Some of them might fit better with what we're going to cover later. Dustin's question is relevant for what we're talking about now. Does it matter if the unit is mounted left or right of center in the car? For good data collection, it does not matter. Only the things Ryan mentioned, clear view of the sky from the top of the unit, not yawed or turned towards the driver. Basically, the back of the unit's facing the direction the car is traveling. You can put it all the way on the left side of the windshield, all the way on the right side. It's still going to get the same as far as like determining the performance envelope of the car, developing the red and green lights that are on the display, and showing you when you're at the limit of the tire or not. that can all be done. That's all corrected for with sensors if those mounting conditions we discussed are used. I personally like to put mine right in front of me, and it's personal preference, but like if I'm driving a car and there's a, the windshield obviously comes down and the dash comes down, I like to move the unit down close to the base of the windshield right in front of me. Therefore, no matter how much I'm turning my head, I always have a glimpse of the lights if I need to see something, if I want to know. A lot of times you're in a steady state corner and you want to know if you've got a red light or not on your unit to see if you're at the limit of the tire. That's where I like to mount it personally.
Right. It's all about your personal preference. Some people like to have the unit very in front of them, like centralized in their vision. Like I said, mine's bottom left of my dash of my car. So that way it's not directly in my vision, but I can still see it with my peripheral vision. Fine.
Yeah. Craig's asking about mounting, saying ideally the more level and square to vehicle center line, the better. Pretty much, yeah.
Ideally.
The center line is not as important for the actual Apex Pro display, but obviously it still uses GPS position for where the unit's mounted. So you can notice, like if you put the unit on the far left side of the car versus the far right, and you look at the GPS image of the data, you'll see that it is going to be a little different because it's 3 or 4 feet one way. And the GPS is precise enough. It's within a meter. So the GPS will know, but vehicle center line is always going to produce good data. And Craig, we will touch on all your questions as well, kind of as we get to that section. You want me to talk about registering an account?
Yep.
So with Apex Pro, I'm going to share my app screen over. We're going to look at the Apex Pro app. When we launched the Gen 2, we basically changed how we basically the whole back end and our server that we keep everything on to store and maintain the app. And to do that, current users were asked to create a new, we're on final approach for the runway here at the plane. Users were asked to create a new username and password. So you'll see right here where it says Andrew's Apex Pro if you're just looking at the app. And I would totally encourage you guys, if you haven't done this yet, open up your app and follow along right now. If I tap where it says Andrew's Apex Pro, if you've never opened that before, it's going to say create new user. And then all you have to do there is enter the username that you want. Mine's ARains 44. 44 was my race number when I raced professionally. So I'm ARains 44. That's my username. And then you're going to have to enter a password. Just use something easy that you're going to remember. Make sure to write it down somewhere or put it in your phone. And then it's going to send you an email confirmation, just like every app that you've ever used ever, pretty much. And you're going to tap that confirmation and then log into your account in the app. What that does for you is that now it's going to allow you to create your username and profile here. You can add your vehicles to the garage. It will associate your best laps at different tracks in your personal track records. It'll keep track of how many laps you've done, how many people you're following, the different tracks that you've submitted data for. You can select multiple cars, or you create multiple cars, and all sorts of good stuff. So that's important to know. Now, for those of you using the app already, what you need to know here is that now when you tap where you see Andrew's Apex Pro, it takes you to your public profile. Other people can see this from the community page. To get to your settings, you're going to tap the little cog, little kind of gear symbol, and that's going to pull up where you have your first, last name, car number, and then all the different settings options. Here you can change it from English to metric units, stream crew view data, stream telemetry data. So basically you don't have to stream data off your device. You can use the Apex hardware GPS or not, turn that off and just use your phone. And then automatic start stop. You can see I have automatic start enabled, automatic stop disabled. So I have to manually stop and then sign out and save changes to your profile down at the bottom. Anything I missed on the profile aspect of things?
Nope, I think you hit everything there. The one thing about the automatic start, if you saw small, it says that it's not available for autocross, because in autocross, if you're already doing 30 mile an hour, when it triggers, you're already in your ride.
Yeah, so if you're autocrossing, the way auto start works is that when the GPS has you at 30 miles per hour, it triggers the lap timer and the data logging. And at autocross, that's not going to work because we're already going to be into the first element of the course by then. Why do you want to create an account? It's just going to give you more features in the app. It's going to let you it's going to save your name, your car, your tire, all that stuff associated with your data sessions, which you're going to want when you go back and look at your data, makes that way easier. It's going to allow others to see your records and reach out to you. Maybe one day you'll be so fast and have so many track records, people will reach out to you and pay you for your data or something. You never know. People do that for us. They really pay for us to help them with their data. You're going to want to do that. It only takes a few minutes.
One thing I wanted to hit on, it does take a data connection to get that first sign in. After you've done registered your account and do your original sign in, you don't have to do it ever again. You don't need to have actually a good data connection in order to be able to using the Apex Pro app or even connecting to the device. But just want to get that out of the way because there's some confusion before about that.
Yeah. So if you haven't been, like Patrick was saying, he just got his OBD2 unit. He hasn't used the device before. He hasn't really used the product before. Open up the app and play around with it before you go to the racetrack while you have a good, Wi-Fi or cellular signal, because you never know at the racetrack. He said he's going to Road Atlanta sometime soon. Road Atlanta is pretty good. Some racetracks do not have good cellular signal. So you're going to want to do that. When you open the app for the first time, it actually pulls in the list of tracks and crew view community data from our server. So you need a Wi-Fi connection to do that. Do you need a Wi-Fi or cellular connection while you're using the product at the track though, Ryan?
No, that's mainly the point I was trying to get across is you do not need to have a Wi-Fi or data connection at the track just to get that initial sign in, the track list down and stuff like that. Once you're done with that point, you do not need a data connection at these tracks. Certainly a lot of tracks out there have really poor connections for data. So we're aware of that and you don't need a good data connection to use at the track.
Yeah, it was designed for to be a motorsports data logger. So if your cellular signal is not great, that's not a big deal. The good news is that as infrastructure gets improved for 5G and 4G gets more widespread, that's going to be less of an issue over time. So works really, really well. Let's talk quickly, and thanks for asking all the questions so far, guys. Go into that Q&A box, drop us your question. We'll answer it on air. Craig will get to your questions. They're all really good questions, so we'll talk about each of those. Now we're going to walk through the drive screen, which is where you tap the steering wheel from the home screen. And Ryan's going to show us how to select a track, how to connect to an Apex Pro, and how to log data. Again, this is chapter 5 in the online startup guide. You can revisit all of this at any point in time and take the course. And there's actually little knowledge checks. The cool thing about the startup guide is it will actually ask you to take a quiz and answer these questions. Does it help at all to use the phone's Wi-Fi hotspot? You can, but not necessary when you're at the track. Yeah.
So starting off, of course, you want to have your Apex Pro on before you try to connect.
Yep.
But once you have the device on, you're going to simply go to the drive screen.
Yep. So the steering wheel is, if you want to, before we do that, actually, now that we're looking at the screen, there's 3 big icons. The steering wheel is where you want to go when you want to drive and log data. My data is where you want to go when you want to review your data. And crew view is where you want to go when you want to look at other users' data, interact with people, see them live on the racetrack, all the good social features we have. We'll talk about that later. So Ryan says, tap the steering wheel. Now what?
All right. So you see how the Connect has a big red Bluetooth symbol. We're going to hit connect. And there, as you see, based upon the Bluetooth connection there, you're going to select the one that's going to have the highest connection due to the fact that that should be the one that you're connecting to.
Yep. See that signal strength, those little, it looks like cellular signal bars. If you have multiple Apex Pros in the area, the way you tell which one is the closest is going to be which one has the best Bluetooth signal strength.
Yes. For example, at Grid Life Midwest Fest earlier this year, there was multiple GoPros, not GoPros, Apex Pros that were signals were everywhere. Obviously, the biggest signal is going to be the one closest to you, closest to your device. That's the one you're going to select. Now, once you've done this, you're going to see this prompt saying the new Apex Pro hardware connected. Would you like to remember this device? You're going to say yes, assuming it's your device, because from this point on, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to select if there's multiple users at the track. So click yes. And once you've done that, this is just to demonstrate that this is a remembered device, but you're going to show the white there saying that you have a good connection to your Apex Pro. So tap that connect one more time for me. You don't need to do this, but I just wanted to show the star showing you that's your device. So that way in the future, it'll be easier to connect next time around with multiple
And the
users.
check mark means you're connected.
Correct.
Yep.
And since we've done that, you can see the light system went away, and you're going to see a flashing blue light in the corner. That flashing blue light to show that you have a Bluetooth connection with this device.
Bluetooth.
So the lights are not supposed to be lit up for the track coach right now. We're not at a track. We're not set up. This is standby mode before you go out.
Yep. What happens if you turn off this device after I hit remember? Just hit the power on this one.
You just turn off the device
and then turn it back on. So it's going to give you a Apex Pro signal lost prompt. And then when you turn it back on, it's going to automatically reconnect.
Boom. Which is great to demonstrate with screen capture that, by the way.
Right. So like Craig, who has just bought a Gen 2, try that right now. Connect to your Apex Pro device, remember it. And then all you have to do after you hit save after the end of a session, if you want to save battery on your device, you can just turn it off.
Now, assuming we were by a racetrack and we had a good connection, it would prompt us to say, hey, for like last weekend, you're at Road Atlanta. So yes, I am. And that way you already have your track selected. Otherwise, your next step would be going to calibrate after you've selected a track.
Yep. And what's important to know on these icons at the top, if the icon is red, that's telling you something needs to be selected there. Right. If it's white, that means it's good to go. Right. So the fact that it's select a track is still red, that means, okay, I need to tap there. And now we can manually select a track from a very, very comprehensive list. I can search for a track in the search bar, or I can tap the plus icon and I can create a custom course, either driving in a car or if I'm out walking around my Apex Pro device. So I guess for now, we'll pick, since Barber's right down the road, we'll pick Barber. How about that?
Right. Well,
I think I just got a package.
All right. So of course, we're not right at Barber, but we have that selected to have the track ready to go. The next thing we would do in this process would be the calibration.
This is after the hardware has been mounted in the car.
You want a good mounted position prior to hitting calibrate, because if for some reason you decide that you have to move, you should probably recalibrate the device to make sure.
Craig asked, can you name your own device? Meaning what I think he's referring to is when you tap Bluetooth and you see where it says Apex Pro, can I rename that? You cannot. And that's because the Bluetooth chip that we use doesn't allow, like it's called Apex Pro. They're all programmed to be called Apex Pro. We haven't found that really to be a need, and we've been at the track with 20 devices and it has never really been a problem. So
yeah, that's a great question though.
No.
But once again, that's the importance of signal strength and remembering your own device, that star. That's why we wanted to go with signal strength.
Once you hit remember, that won't be an issue.
Correct.
Yeah.
So from here, if you're ready to go out on track, you would hit the open lap timer button.
Yep. And what about these settings down here?
Well, if you did want to play with the settings, of course, you see in the top left is display. The standard lighting system is your green and red. So the green showing what you're using of your grip as we change then. The red would be your potential. Now we just changed to blue. Blue is what you're using of the grip level, and red is still your potential left over. If you want to not have the two light system, which is what I usually prefer, you can also go solid lights too, where there is no essentially another potential light system, just open lights.
The end of the bar is the grip limit.
Right.
Which is, I think, is harder to see, but some people like that.
Yeah, I actually used to use the blue and the red for more than anything else. But since I try to instruct by saying green and red, now I've been doing that a lot more. Yeah. Otherwise, the brightness would be the next. As you can tell, it can get very bright, or maybe you don't want it so bright in your face, so you can turn it down.
Let's go full brightness.
Yeah,
there you go.
Full brightness. Yeah, if you're in a location that's very bright, maybe you're out in the middle of the desert, I don't know, somewhere like Buttonwillow, like for Global Time Attack or something this weekend, maybe you need full brightness. But for most occasions, I do not run anything more than half brightness. Otherwise, in the bottom left hand there, you have the filter, which would be from open track to autocross. Now tapping on the bottom left bar there, see, going to autocross compared to road racing, the light system is just going to react a little quicker for you, because in autocross things happen at a much quicker pace than say road course. Not the actual speeds of course, but just the transfer of weight.
Yeah.
a lot faster
Flipping the
hand
wheel.
movement. Next would be the skill, which going into skill is essentially how much you're wanting it to
Be a critic.
pick on you,
Yeah.
be a critic.
Yeah, if you really want to see where you're not using all the tire, then go to the 3-star skill level.
Right. I guess if we want to get into the more the Gen 2 type functions,
Yeah,
we
while
can.
we're here.
Tap the 3 dots on the bottom right hand. So now this is Gen 2 specific, but the top left would be learning. Now, right now it automatically learns for the Apex Track Coach as usual, just like the Gen 1 would do. Now the Gen 2 feature, which by tapping the learning would freeze the learning. So for example, if you decided, and you get the nice little blue light sequence to let you know it's going frozen. But this is to let you know that it's no longer learning and trying to generate any more information about your friction circle and what potential you have. So you can always freeze that between two different drivers for the coaching session, or say an endurance team. If I give your hot shoe that you want to freeze it after him where it quits learning, that's a nice feature. That's specific to the
if
Gen
Ryan
2.
and I are sharing a car and maybe I'm still getting up to speed and I haven't quite learned and I'm not comfortable driving the car as quickly yet, Ryan goes out and sets a much faster lap. I can then tap frozen on the Apex Pro model, and whatever he just did, the data he just recorded, as long as I haven't turned off the unit,
Right.
is going to be stored and basically redisplayed. So then I would be driving to his lights.
Right.
So it might be more obvious to me where I'm not using the potential.
And that brings up another important thing. Every time the device is turned off and back on, you're resetting. Okay. It starts fresh over, relearning again every time you turn it off and back on. There's so that way if you did happen to lose power, it will start relearning from the beginning. Otherwise, the last potential button we can tap on there is going to be the Apex Track Coach, which then turns into predictive. Now the predictive, if you can see it on here, we haven't started it yet, but it's going to be 2 little lights in the center, which kind of like a lot of sim racing games out there. Green lights to the right are going to show how much you're up from your delta lap, and then red lights to the left is how much you're down from your delta lap. Now, those are very important for people who want to do time attack or don't want to see a lighting system like the LTP off their phone. But basically, it's just a very simple lights to let you know dots how many up of your delta or down from your delta. A lot of people, though, typically use just the Track Coach feature, which is standard on Gen 1, but the Gen 2 has this extra feature of the predictive.
Yep. Yeah, and if your lights are not doing what you expect, go to this page and make sure you haven't accidentally somehow selected predictive. It's pretty easy to like go change it between predictive like we're doing now and Apex Coach, and then you get the one that you're not intending for it to be. I'll change it back to the Apex Coach model. You got something?
No, I'll just say, if you tap it one more time to show predictive, see how that does that light sequence, that's to let you know you're on predictive. Otherwise, you're going to have alternating red and green, one light going back and forth in the center as you open your lap and start your lap timer. You see that, that means you've started your lap timer in predictive mode. If that's not what you want, stop it and go back, make a quick change.
Yep. Craig's asking, tracks are listed alphabetically. Will you look to list or search by country? Never thought about that. It's a good idea. I won't confirm or deny whether we'll do that, but we will think about it. It's a good idea.
Otherwise, since we've gone over these features, we can get to the point where we're just going to get into lapping or open the lap timer.
Yep. Open lap timer, obviously, that's where you want to go.
Now, this is going to look a little different since we're on an iPad and not an iPhone. So an iPhone, you're going to get 2 boxes. As you can see, the iPad here is a lot more. It looks like Andrew just switched it to landscape mode, so that also changes that.
Boom.
Big thing is landscape mode. The button would be on the bottom left-hand side next to the start there. This is important to do ahead of time, especially if you're going to record a video. The reason being is once you've started your session, you're usually set at where that is, because as you're driving, you got to think of the G load. If it wasn't set in landscape mode by manually having to press a button, you would be flipping every corner you go into if it's automatically rotating.
Yeah.
So it does not auto rotate by the position of your phone. You must manually tap that button.
Right. And that if you're in a street car on like a lower grip street tire, that is not really a problem, the screen rotation, but as soon as you start pulling over 1G consistently, it's very likely that your screen will rotate.
Right.
And if you're recording video, that's a big problem.
I've done this before on Facebook Live, and people said they were going to get sick.
Yeah.
Did a video where I didn't lock the rotation. It just kept going every corner.
Again, it's a motorsports product. You got to respect the motorsports environment. If you're pulling 1.3 lateral G, your phone's going to flop screen size. It's going to go from landscape to portrait. So now you have to manually do it with the little rotatey button. And I think Ryan was something else.
Otherwise, the opposite side button is the maximization or minimize screen. So instead of having multiple panels, as you see, you did 1 zoomed in, 2 pretty zoomed in, or 4 not zoomed in at all.
Yeah.
Which honestly, seeing 4
Four is
screens
too
at
many.
once is a little
Yeah.
much.
And this is on an iPad, which you're probably not going to mount in your line of sight in your car.
Right.
If you're using an iPhone with the normal screen, you're going to have this button, and it's going to basically select you between. It's going to basically. My mom just texted me a picture of Robbie's car that got crashed during the petite race.
Oh, geez.
I don't think Robbie was starting, so that's a bummer. But you can pick between 1 display item or 2 on your phone, and you're probably going to want the lap time in the top left and then the session laps in the top right, but you might want to use something else.
Right. For example, in a time attack scenario on that, typically it's not your lap session is not as important as the current lap and only the current lap. So then I'll maximize the top left screen there. Otherwise, when you're ready and have everything selected that you want to look at prior to your session, you would then hit the start button, which is the bottom middle. So you're going to see, then the light system comes back on. Until you've hit start, once you get a Bluetooth connection, you will not see any other lights except for the one flashing blue in the right-hand corner. It's very important. Your device isn't broken, nothing's wrong. You won't see these lights until you hit start again.
Yep. And if you have auto start enabled, which everybody does by default, when you drive out of the paddock or drive out of the pits, it's going to trigger the timer to start.
Right.
I want to touch a couple of things about these icons on the top of the screen real quick while we're here. We'll stop our session. I guess we can go through this real quick.
Can get into it real quick. Yeah.
When you save a data session, you're going to have the option to choose which car, tire manufacturer, and tire compound you're running. So what will happen is this data will be stored with your session. And in case you're on the leaderboard, when you submit this session, which you can see right here, submit the top 10 over here, then people will be able to see what car and tire you were driving to do that lap time. Because obviously at some tracks, if you're in something, a certain car, one lap time can be very impressive or very unimpressive. And then obviously what you're going to see here is the driver name, which is from your user profile, what vehicle you were driving, the weather, which is really cool. It saves the sky conditions and the temperature. And then you're also going to get your best lap from the session and your theoretical lap displayed here at the top.
Important to let people know about this scenario, this selection area, is that your vehicle on the left, the BMW M3, that has to be set up in your garage underneath your crew view area, your user profile, prior to going out to the session. So it can't be changed after the fact. We can't add that vehicle afterwards. You can type it in manually, but it's not going to be saved correctly. So please get your garage set up prior to driving on the track or on autocross or custom course. Everything below that, you can manually type and change. If you want to delete all the weather information, the vehicle information of the driver, that can manually be changed and saved and updated. Otherwise, your setup as well can be changed anyway.
Yep. And when you're looking through this list here, a lot of people don't realize that this is selectable. So when you get here, just scroll through here. This will be after your session. You're about to get your water, make some notes, look through your data, cool down. You can pick your tire manufacturer and then the compound or the tire style, really. So street tire is really pretty much 200 tread wear and up. It's kind of what we define it as. Some 200 tread wear tires are not really street tires, but they'll get away with it. And our compound tire is going to be pretty much anything up to and including like a Hoosier R7 is technically an R compound slick. That could be debated whether it's an R compound or a slick. It doesn't really matter. That's your 100 tread wear tire category.
It's technically DOT legal, so that's why it's in the R compound and not slick category.
Everybody knows that's total bull.
Not intended for highway use.
Don't drive your R7s, your Hoosier R7s on the highway. Slick, that's going to be a Michelin, a Pirelli, a Dunlop, a Goodyear. There's a bunch of different slick
Yokohama.
manufacturers. Yokohama, BFG makes the MX5 Cup one. Basically, just pick the tire. So what I was running last on this one, I'm going to pick the favorite tire I've run on this car, which was a Goodyear 100 treadwear Supercar 3R. And I'm going to save it.
Now, one thing about that is important. Once you've done that and saved, from now on, anytime you go out, it's going to make the automatic assumption you're in a BMW M3 with a Goodyear R compound, unless you change it, because it's going to go off what you saved last.
Yeah. Craig asked 2 relevant questions for this part of the presentation, and then I'm going to show you guys what these icons up in the top mean. First of all, Craig says battery life is said to be 4 hours. Is it okay to connect to a USB power supply? To directly answer your question, yes, you can power it while it's running. Battery life is way better than 4 hours with a Gen 2.
Right.
That was probably a very conservative estimate with a Gen 1. With a Gen 2, unless it's really, really hot or really, really cold, it's going to probably run for 6 to 8 hours.
Another important thing about the Gen 2 battery is until you're actually in the lap timer where it's not just Bluetooth connected, you're kind of on standby. So it's not always actively looking for like a GPS signal. So it's going to not just kill your battery nearly as quick in that setting. I've left mine on after an autocross weekend for multiple days. It's just in standby mode.
Yeah. I ran at NCM earlier this year. I charged the unit. I ran it down on Friday. I charged it for 2 hours on Friday, and I ran the entire rest of the weekend without charging it.
Right.
You definitely want to turn it off overnight, but I left it on all day.
And then once again, for searching for a GPS signal, start your session a few minutes prior to going out. That way it gives it time to find a good signal prior to going out. So it's not always actively looking for one in the first lap.
So Craig asked for a confirmation, said video recording is a subscription feature. That's true. It's either $9.99 a month or $99 a year.
Right.
However, when you go to the store, it shows predictive as a subscription service. Does this relate to Gen 1 only? I got the impression earlier Gen 2 predictions bundled into the device. So
we'll clear that up.
Yeah.
So actually, if you go back into, as we're going to go out back on track, say maximize your top left corner there.
Yep. Let me do that.
There we go.
Let me try to get one page. There we go.
It's because you're not in landscape.
It's because let's go to landscape.
There you go. So looking at this screen, the predictive that's mentioned as an LTP subscription is this predictive, meaning you're looking at your phone or your iPad. The bottom left corner above the landscape mode will let you know if you're looking at your predictive, your lap times, your delta predictive. That is the LTP feature that we're discussing.
Yes. So this feature that the arrow is pointing to, if you do not have a Lap Timer Plus subscription selected, you will not be able to toggle that icon.
Correct.
If you tap it, it'll tell you to purchase Lap Timer Plus. So what you pay for predictive is a numbered display on the screen.
Right.
All Gen 2 units come with predictive mode on the lights. So Craig, to answer your question, if you want a number displayed on the screen, that's an in-app purchase. If you want the lights to say you're faster or slower than your best lap, that's included with Gen 2.
And that's how they're different. The predictive is actually, it can try to predict based upon your driving around the track and the distance is gone and what track you're at, is trying to predict your lap as you're driving it. Now the predictive by delta, of course, is comparing to your fastest. And then the Gen 2 system needs to have lap data in it to give you the light predictive from then on. It can't just start trying to predict your lap like this predictive. So it is a different feature. Some people get distracted by trying to look at a number as they're driving.
A lot of people do.
A lot of people do. I prefer it, but I'm used to time attacking. So to me, I like to know as soon as I drive into the corner what I'm doing, how I'm reacting to it. Also, what you're not going to be able to see right now because we're not on track running laps is it'll show green or red as a background behind your lap time to let you know if you're up or down from your delta lap.
Yeah. So if you pay for predictive, which there's an option for a monthly predictive, which is $5, I would definitely try that. If you're going to use it, for 7 or 8 months out of the year, you probably should buy the annual, which is going to save you some money. But when you're driving, that whole lap time we're looking at right now will turn green when you're faster than your best lap, and it'll turn red when you're slower than your best lap. And that's really good feedback. So the reason predictive can be hard to see, like a text number can be hard to see, is because the human brain has to have like very focused vision to read text, to decipher text. So you'll notice if you're driving on the racetrack, to read something, to look at a number, to look at a gauge and read a number or a letter, your eyes have to go directly to that spot and refocus, which can take close to a second sometimes. Just right. And then you can interpret it. Maybe not quite a second. But to see color, your eyes can see color at a 100-degree range from I have a whole article on this. It's really fascinating. You can interpret colors much easier than you can interpret text. So for most people, as your driving develops, you become a better driver, you drive more often, your brain will start to interpret colors sooner than you'll be able to read text efficiently. So for you newer drivers, if you're interested in predictive, I would recommend the Gen 2 display mode first, because it takes less bandwidth to recognize green or red. That's all you have to recognize. If you're time attacking or maybe endurance racing and you're running to a specific lap time, you've probably elevated yourself to the point where you're at a wheel-to-wheel level, competition level, and you know how to do a cross-check with your vision and see that number and not have it hurt your times. Even high-level professional drivers get distracted by reading text. There's a reason when you look in the cockpit of a race car, everything's color-coded and labeled, and it's all tied to a color because it's easier for your mind to see it. That's why it's a little easier to see the Apex Pro lights on the track. It still takes time for your brain to adapt. Let's talk about these icons on the top super quick.
Actually, we have a question here from Keith, which we can get into in a little bit. I just want to let you know, Keith, I did see your question about the lap timer plus and sector times. We'll follow up with that here in a moment.
All right. So what I'm pointing to, and I did the wrong annotation tool here. I'm looking for my arrow. Where'd my little arrow go?
So as you're looking at the top there, as we're trying to get our arrow system going, you'll see the white currently, by the way, is showing that we do have our connection to the Apex Pro. The red, as you're showing how there is not a connection to the OBD2 unit at this time. That's why you see one it's white, one it's red, and the white also to the far right is your video recording. The video recording has to be toggled prior to going out, or it will not record your session video at all. You need to give it recording permissions in the app. It needs to be toggled green.
Yep.
It's not toggle green in the app, it will not record anything.
And if you do not have an active monthly Lap Timer Plus subscription, or you're not an annual member, you won't be able to toggle that record video toggle.
Just like the predictive won't be an option.
You can see now I'm mounting. Hello. You can see there's my garage. There's the car behind me. Yep. Cool. Yeah, so those icons in the top are very important. The longest arrow is pointing to the GPS signal, and that's when you're connected to your unit. Like we don't have a GPS signal at all right now because we're below ground in my garage. Not going to get a GPS signal here. When you do have one, it's going to tell you how good that signal is. It's going to say something M, which stands for meters, which us Americans don't know what a meter is. It's about yay big, a little bit bigger than a yard. And that's telling you how accurate the GPS signal is. If you're not connected to your Apex Pro, boom, that GPS signal and the Bluetooth icon shut off. Patrick, who has an OBD2 only, you're only going to see a white check engine light. You're not going to see the other two because you're not connecting to the Apex Pro unit. You're just connecting to the OBD2. Right. And that means that you have a connection there.
And as anyone probably noticed, the Bluetooth connection went from white to red, boom, back to white because I was toggling the unit on and off.
Yeah. And that white GPS icon did mean we had some sort of a GPS signal. It just wasn't a very good one. When you're outside, like believe it or not, you can't be inside a building for a GPS to get a satellite fix on you.
Right.
We have a lot of videos that talk about the details of GPS and how it works. It's actually pretty fascinating stuff.
If you could do me a favor and go into a quick thing about data so we can answer Keith's question.
Sure.
He was saying on his iPad he couldn't find his sector times.
We're going to go to my data. Okay.
Which it's a little bit more difficult on the iPad because there's more information to look at, but you can definitely still find your sector times on the iPad.
Heath, someone asked this question on the users group yesterday.
So you're going to see you have the two screens with two different set of options. Scrolling over to the right and all the way to the right is where you're going to find that. Now, you might not see sector times at first. You might have Apex set up. You might have speed set up, but you need to go all the way to the top of this list typically and see sector times. Now, you can change how the list is ordered, but that's where you would find your sector times if you're an LTP subscriber. Now, this part of sector times, and what you see over there is your theoretical best lap. This part is an LTP feature only. We'll give you a theoretical best lap so you can try to gloat to your friends at the end of the session, but it's not going to be like this.
Yeah.
And that's for every user. They can see a theoretical at the end
Yep.
of their session.
The theoretical best lap feature associated with your data session is free. It's part of using the device. To see how that theoretical is composed
Right.
is what we're looking at here. So the green blocks that you see, it's a combination of each one of these is a lap. Each column is a lap, and each block is your sector. And piecing together the best sectors gives you your theoretical or optimal lap, which is represented by the number at the top of the stack up there. And
Right.
so getting to sector times, the important thing, what I'm assuming you're probably missing, Keith, is that you're here and you're just looking at another data channel, and you just need to scroll up until you see sector times.
Yep, I just want to hit on that. I just know with the iPad, there's a lot more information going on between the two screens that you can toggle there, and you just need to go over to the far right, set it up with sector times.
Yeah.
And that's how you can find it still.
Right. Let's I think we've covered pretty much all of the standard stuff. Let's answer the 3 questions that Craig has and monitor the chat real quick, and then open the floor up for any other questions. And Craig's got some questions that are kind of more based on like just general use. And then I think we'll talk about Crew View briefly, and maybe talk about Lap Timer Plus. And then we've got some other stuff coming up. We'll promote like webinars and all sorts of cool stuff.
Right.
Black Friday.
Ooh.
Get ready. Craig says, how long does the unit retain the performance envelope of the vehicle? I assume it's for the full power on time. You're correct. Bingo. When you turn it off, it forgets. There's a lot of reasons for that. The biggest one is, I messed that up, didn't I?
But yeah, we did discuss that earlier, but just to hit on it again, as soon as the device is turned off, it is losing what it learned. It's reset.
Craig's next question, can the unit be used to identify vehicle performance on an open course, i.e. like a special stage, like a rally? First of all, jealous. We should go to New Zealand. Second of all, yes.
Yes.
You can even set, like make a rally course, a point to point, like an autocross course, start point and finish point, make a custom course. There's information on that on our YouTube channel and on the startup guide. Or you can just turn the unit on without connecting it to your phone or anything, and it's going to give you the Apex Pro display. And it does the same thing when it does that.
But yes, I actually use the custom course as a point to point in autocross quite often. So I just do the walk method, set my start left and right side, set my finish left and right side, manually hit start before my session, and it will trigger once I go through the gate, and it will also stop my time once I hit the end gate. And it's real good to do between runs with 2 drivers to compare.
Yeah. I saw Craig asked about the blog or the article that I wrote about color versus text. Do you mind going to the Apex Pro website on your computer and go into the blog page? And I believe it's called something like the power of the periphery. So Craig, it's about peripheral vision. And this is kind of some of the science behind why we chose red and green and why the Apex Pro display is what it is. But it's got some cool graphics and some cool things on there to basically say, you know, your brain interprets, it's going to be pretty far down. It was a while ago. Might have to just Google the power of the periphery or something. Okay. But
I'll find it.
It's pretty interesting. I did a lot of research on it. Movement is the easiest for your peripheral vision to see. So when you're in a race car, you're looking forward, maybe at your brake zone, and another car pulls alongside, you can see another car actually like behind the perpendicular plane coming off the side of your face. You can see, like I can see my hand right now. So your peripheral vision is just exceptionally, wonderfully powerful. And that article talks a lot about that. Cool. Ryan just dumped it in the chat. Let's talk about Crew View real quick. And this is pretty cool because we just made some changes that are not functionality changes, just UI changes. So Crew View is now a little people icon, which I made a game time call on that between the trophy and the people. It used to be a trophy. And I think Crew View is more people oriented.
Right.
So tap Crew View, and this is going to pull up the Crew View map.
But if some people might notice, there's still a trophy in there.
There is still a trophy in there. And I don't have my annotation tools pulled up. There is a trophy. So what does well, let's talk about what the map
We
does,
won't go quite into that.
and
yet.
then we'll talk about the trophy. So tell us about the crew view map, Ryan.
So as you see, it's just a map of where where you're currently at. You can see, whoops. Yeah, we
Oh.
have crew viewer.
Reconnect.
Probably because we're not having the best connection right now in here, but
What do you mean? My Wi-Fi is great.
ultimately it shows you where you're at on track, and it's giving you a number of actually tracks in the given area.
Yep,
So apparently near Michigan and Ohio, there's a lot of tracks by the looks.
there are. Yeah.
And
Look at all those racetracks.
there you go. As you zoom in, you're gonna see all of them there. The closer you zoom in, the more names you're gonna see. Otherwise, you can tap on any individual track at the time to see a little closer. If there was people driving at the track at the time, you would also get the list of people driving. If you're by a track, for example, at Road Atlanta last time, I went to crew view. It let me know, hey, you're by Road Atlanta right now. Do you want to focus on that? And
There's
I
New
did.
Zealand.
Here we go.
Just showing where all the tracks are. Okay, sorry.
Given it's like Friday afternoon, do we have anyone on track at the
I
moment?
didn't see anyone, but
I
that's kind of
didn't think we
surprising.
would.
Well, it also might be lunchtime for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Anyone west of us.
People could be having their break right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about the trophy real quick. So what
Okay.
does the trophy do for us?
So the trophy, as you just clicked on, go to our leaderboard. Now this can be all events that have recently happened. People have just submitted. You can look at your specific friends list, home tracks, for example. I typically follow NCM, Barber.
There's Kim
Gingerman.
Coffee right there. She's on the
Hey, there
webinar.
we go.
We can
Looks
see
like,
Kim's data right here.
yep.
Michelin Street Tires. She even selected her tires.
I bet she was on a Pilot Sport for us.
I
if
bet
had to
she was
guess.
She's got a
Especially with
Supra.
that Supra.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So once again, we're bringing up people's data from the leaderboard, which is great. This particular leaderboard is everyone who's recently submitted.
All events. Yep. I can tap friends, and that's where I can just see people that I'm following. There's Hudson, free whiffs. So the way you follow somebody is go to the all events page. And if like I'm not following this person, Kaiser, because they don't appear on my friends list. So I can tap their name where you just see their username right there. And I can tap follow. That's Daniel Metmedi. I don't know how to say your name, Daniel. I'm sorry. I think he actually registered for the webinar, funny enough. So
there we go.
sorry if I said your name wrong.
But that's one of the cool features that we also have that keeps things social. You can click on anyone who's shared their data, see their data, look at that. And as you might have seen, if you're an LTP user as well, you can also save their data. So you can compare it in more detail.
Can, if you're an LTP annual subscriber. So let's say I'm going to a new racetrack next weekend. I'm going to go, I've never been to Putnam Park. And M. Barnes Jr. here, I don't know if that's fast at Putnam Park or not. But okay, well, he keeps getting faster every session. Well, I'm going to tap this 119.7. Since I'm an LTP annual user, he didn't put his
Looks like he didn't have his garage set up ahead of
garage
time.
set up. Yep.
So once again, it's
But,
important. You have to have the garage set up ahead of time.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to have the vehicle information in there.
Because I have an LTP annual subscription, I can actually save his data, and that'll save it into my data. And then I can, if I already have data from this track, I can overlay it and compare. Or if I haven't been to this track before, I might just want to look at some data just to get an idea of what cornering speeds are and top speeds and different things.
And if I had to guess, it looks like he's in a Shelby GT 350.
I believe so. Yeah. It's a pretty good indication. So that is a super powerful feature. That's something that's kind of unique to Apex Pro. A lot of the competitors in our space don't have these community driven features. So if you're watching this on Facebook right now and paying any attention, you know, maybe you're at work and kind of dozing off, which I'd recommend. This is more important anyway. Then go download some people's data and start poking around. And you can obviously search tracks, other usernames, vehicles. Ryan mentioned home tracks. So to set up home tracks, you tap this little globe icon, and then you can tap the tracks that I just have a whole bunch of random ones selected. Obviously, Anderstorp and Anglesey, neither of those are in the US, but I do have the tracks that I care about. So
Right.
maybe the tracks you're familiar with lap times for, the tracks you go to often. You want to go in here and set those up as your home tracks. And then I can go see anytime someone submits data. So we got somebody submitting data for Carolina Motorsports Park. I can see that. Carolina Motorsports Park. Sebring is one of my tracks that I care about. I can see when data is submitted at the racetracks that I care about under home tracks. I think we just might need to close out the app and go back into it.
Too much stuff going on.
Well, when you're connected to the computer like
Right.
this, it eventually just buffers.
All right. Let's see.
There's Ryan Finch.
Bam. Remember, you want to set up that garage no matter whose
Whoa.
vehicle you're co-driving or testing that weekend.
Whoa.
Set up ahead of time.
Yeah, look at these track records too. 124. That's not actually
That's
you, is it?
Ferris.
Yeah.
Ferris Kartoumi. If he is running at the GTA Finals this weekend, hopefully good luck.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I got to help him at Gingerman at the Midwest Festival. It was not a Honda Civic Si with Falcons, but it was a C6 Z06 twin turbo on Yokohama
Yeah.
slicks.
You mean your Civic Si can't go 161 miles an hour in a
No,
short straightaway?
surprisingly not.
So I can go save that data session and review it, which I have already. Also, what you'll notice on Ryan's profile here, he's got his profile picture, which is his car. This little kind of Twitter check mark is just telling you he's a verified Lap Timer Plus annual subscriber. That's kind of telling you that he's got all the features. He's probably a badass, all that kind of stuff. Cool. Let's see what we got. A couple of questions here. You want to read through those? I'll go back to the home screen. I think we touched everything on crew view there. We must not have anybody on track right now. Either that or we're maxing out my Wi-Fi because my iPad doesn't have cellular, which is totally possible because we've got 2 computers, an iPad, and a couple of iPhones all. And we're broadcasting live on Facebook and running a Zoom webinar.
Craig Russell was asking about if we've used an emulator to view Apex data on a laptop. Old eyes need real estate. Currently, we have not gone into testing with that, but we have heard about people trying to use that.
If you know how to use emulators and you can make that work, you can probably figure it out. What I would recommend though, Craig, just keep it simple. Don't get into the tech. Either get you an iPad, which is lots of screen real estate, or pro tip, just get a Lightning to HDMI connection, depending on what type of computer you have or TV. And you can just get like a Lightning adapter that goes into your phone and you can cast it onto your TV, just like plug an HDMI cord into your TV, and it's super simple and it blasts it up on a big TV. So like when I coach clients like Ryan Power, he's got a TV in his motorhome at the track, and we come back and he's got a Lightning dongle and we just stick it into the iPad, and then I cast the data up onto the TV, and it's so simple, huge screen. If you're really just looking for screen real estate. Now in the future, as the tools get more complex and sophisticated in the app, of course, we would love to have our own desktop app so you can use the mouse and the keyboard to manipulate the data. But right now,
his other question was about the LED lights, how when you turn it on, they are illuminated at the beginning. Just trying to understand, why they had illuminated lights at the beginning for potential. So that's has to do with the orientation of the device. As you see, as it moves, it's going to change the lighting system based upon how it sits. It's not calibrated, it's not stationary, so the lights will always be adjusting, Craig. Sometimes you'll see 1 or 2 lights. Sometimes, depending on how it's oriented, when you turn it on, you'll see more lights lit up. But ultimately, that's not something to over concern yourself about, because you still need to calibrate your device and open the lap timer before you need to worry about the lighting system.
Yeah, I would say you probably just need to calibrate it in that situation if it's showing something you're not expecting. Also, the lights make a lot more sense when you're repeating laps over and over again.
Right.
Simplifies it a lot. Kim says she's already watched all the instructional videos. Yeah,
there we go.
I love it.
Cool. I was also going to say, if anyone who was at time trial nationals at NCM, I think it was 2019, would have seen Andrew using the Lightning to HDMI adapter with his screen to go over data. I know that was one of the times we were looking at my Civic Si on track data and going over deception and everything else. And
yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on Lap Timer Plus super quick. I'm going to share the screen back because I want everyone to be aware of what's a free feature and what is not. What do you have to purchase? So first of all, the philosophy, why do we have an in-app purchase? we're a business. That's reason number one. Reason number two is that it costs a lot of money to develop and maintain features in the app. And believe it or not, the motorsports community is not enormous. We're not selling an app to everybody that has a smartphone like Instagram or Facebook is. We're selling it specifically to people like you who go to the racetrack. So we have to charge to maintain the app, develop these features. So Ryan and I get a salary, which is nice.
Yeah, and these features were after the fact, meaning like the Gen 1 had already been out, the Gen 2 is already in progress when these extra features were coming out. So it wasn't initially put in the development costs of the actual hardware.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Everything that's a Lap Timer Plus feature is something that we added specifically to charge for. So it's not one of those things where one day the app was operating and functioning, and the next day there's a paywall and says, hey, you have to pay me now.
Yeah.
That never happened. For those of you that went through that transition with us, you recognize that there's only new features. Sometimes people that are new to the company and the product expect all the features that are Lap Timer Plus features to be free, and that's okay, but they don't realize that we've developed everything else until that point, and it was totally included with the hardware. Right. And now we're charging for these features because, believe it or not, getting the video rendering and syncing and predictive timing to work is not easy.
Right. And we just improved upon the stabilization just within the last few months. So
video is way better.
We're always working on things, trying to improve. But once again, it takes time and money.
Yep. There's a lot of things outside of just the features that LTP gets you as well. But let's just talk about the kind of different pricing levels and what you get. So if you just want predictive timing and you want to be able to look at your sector times that we showed earlier, the $5 a month level is probably a good place to start. That's not going to give you video rendering very critically. And that's not going to give you access to all the other LTP features that we'll mention, but that's a good place to start. The monthly video, that's really only a deal if you're only going to be at the track a couple months a year. It's $10 a month. That's going to let you do unlimited video recording and rendering. If you're going to the track in 4 to 6 different months out of the year, you probably want to go ahead, if you're going to use video for each event, you want to go ahead and buy the membership, because as soon as you have that active video for, let's do simple math, 9 times 10 is already more than the LTP membership. So if you're going to have it for about 8 months or so, you might as well go ahead and buy the membership. Telemetry streaming, actually, I wouldn't recommend purchasing that right now because we need to update it. And telemetry is now included with Gen 2s. And then the LTP membership, that's our most popular level. And what that does is it gets you all the things that you see here feature-wise in the app: video rendering, unlimited video rendering, predictive timing, sector times, all that stuff. But it also gets you access to a private Facebook group, gets you on a mailing list where we send out special discounts and offers. So this month, it's 15% off all HMS Motorsport core brand products like Schuberth helmets, like I have, Schroth racing harnesses, all sorts of cool stuff. We're going to probably do some potential friction company partnerships in the future where you're going to get a discount on friction material that's commonly used to slow your car down on the track. Talk about that. But basically, you're going to get discounts and offers. You're going to get access to new features and stuff, and have your opinion asked quickly and early in the process. And then you also get discounts on all of our webinars. So I think that's enough on.
Now, if we actually had someone on track in the crew view, we could have better demonstrated the telemetry feature. Ultimately, the telemetry feature is when you're watching someone driving live on crew view, but you'll see them at the track, where they're positioning the vehicles in the track and their speeds. This is all normal for the app. Even if you don't even have an Apex Pro Gen 1, Gen 2, you can log in and watch people on crew view. Now, the Gen 2 broadcast telemetry where the Gen 1 cannot. If you're on your phone or iPad and watching someone on crew view that has a Gen 2, you can rotate it so that way you can see on landscape instead of portrait their speed, time, distance trace, their lat G, their long G, their apex, wherever you want to select. You can watch it live as they're driving on track. So if you're in a champ car, WRL, whatever endurance series, for example, you can be someone's crew chief and see, why were you coasting into turn 5 this time? Why was that not a sawtooth setup? Why was it nice round and hump?
Yeah, so if you have a friend like Craig, if you have a friend in New Zealand that's at the track with you, just get them to download the Apex Pro app, create a profile, go to crew view, and they'll find you on the satellite image when you're out on the track, and they can turn their phone to landscape and see data coming off your unit. which is super cool. That's not really anything anyone else is doing.
Right. Once again, it's very unique to our product. And once again, it's free to download the app and watch people at tracks, watch what they're doing as long as they're broadcasting. Now, once again, we did mention about data earlier, needing a good connection. To do crew view or display that information, yes, you need to have data connection.
Yes.
If you're not on data, you're not going to broadcast that information to anyone.
Yeah.
It's not going to get out there.
So CrewView uses your phone and its cellular connection to broadcast that information. So if you don't have a cellular connection, or you're using a device that doesn't have cellular, you're not going to be able to broadcast that.
And yes, you can turn that off in case you don't want to share that information.
It's in the user profile.
Yep.
Man, we covered a lot. That was an hour and 10 minutes.
That was a lot.
So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to let us know right now. Otherwise, you can reach us at apex@apextrackcoach.com.
Or if you want to reach us directly, Ryan at apextrackcoach.com. And of course,
Andrew at apextrackcoach.com. Patrick said, any teams at Road Atlanta tomorrow that I can see with CrewView? Not in Petit Le Mans. I wish.
Yeah.
But professional series are those cars are homologated race cars,
Mhm.
meaning the factory builds that race car. And pretty much all those situations, anything IMSA level, anything pretty much above the club racing level has got a homologated race car these days. And they basically are only allowed to run, like Robbie runs the Magnetti Morelli or Bosch. I think they have a Bosch. It's a German car.
Like
Probably have
ultimately,
a
they're not
Bosch
allowed
system.
to have.
They
any
can't
other
use
systems.
outside data systems. The cars determine it themselves. So no one at Petite will be running Apex Pro. Hopefully that'll change at one point in the future. But
Unfortunately, that'd be nice to be able to see everyone driving live with that type of information.
yeah, cool. Thanks, Kim. We'll see you in January. We're going to be announcing details on an upcoming webinar with somebody named Peter Kraus, who's going to join me for a webinar in a couple of weeks.
That guy.
You'll see that. We'll email you guys and post that on Facebook. And there's an event in January that's specifically for NASA HPDE drivers, NASA Great Lakes drivers, to come down to our home track, which is right over there, and do a little bit of driving in January when it's cold. So I know Kim is already on that webinar that's on Tuesday, and that's where we're going to announce details for that. So we'll see you there. Anything else?
Otherwise, of course, if you haven't yet, join the Apex Pro user group on Facebook. That's for anyone can join that group. There's a lot of discussions. Sometimes people ask questions. Either way, good way to follow us on Instagram. Of course, our YouTube channel also has a lot of valuable information and videos.
Yeah, buy Valvoline products because they really are the best. 15 or 20 W50 VR1 synthetic. See you guys later.